Hello there. Today's story starts off quite normally, but the way it ends will leave many completely stunned. One evening, a married couple was driving together, but along the way, for some unknown reason, an argument broke out between them. The wife, overwhelmed with anger, suddenly opened the car door, stepped out onto the road, and from that moment on, she vanished without a trace. 2 days later, the husband, looking visibly worried, showed up at the local police station. He asked the police for help finding his wife. At first, it sounded like a typical case of a couple having a fight, and the wife storming off to cool down somewhere. But the deeper the police dug, the more they felt that something wasn't right. This might not be just a simple missing person case. The incident took place in Chiba Prefecture, Japan, located in the Kanto region, not far from the capital, Tokyo, more specifically. It happened in the city of Kashiwa, situated in the northwestern part of Chiba, with a population of around 410,000. Kashiwa ranks among the 5 largest cities in the prefecture. The central figure of this story, the missing woman, was named Yatani Maiko. Born in 1988, Maiko was known for being smart, quick-witted, and full of energy. In 2010, after graduating from Tokyo Women's University, 22-year-old Maiko began working at the Chiba Kogyo Bank in Kashiwa City. It was there that she met a colleague 6 years her senior, Yatani Takahito. As they worked together, Takahito consistently looked after Maiko with care and attention. Over time, their mutual respect grew into something deeper, and eventually, love began to blossom between them. By February 2012, the couple held their wedding ceremony and officially became husband and wife. They settled down in the Natashio Central District of Kashiwa and began building their life together as a family. 5 years later, Maiko gave birth to a lovely baby girl. Wanting to take better care of their child, she decided to leave her job at the bank and become a full-time homemaker. From the outside, their life in the following years seemed sweet and peaceful, the picture of a happy, harmonious family. From time to time, Maiko would post photos on Facebook, moments with her daughter, snapshots with her husband, or simple family meals. To friends and relatives, they seemed like the perfect happy family. But was that really the case? Why did Maiko suddenly vanish? What exactly happened on that day? Now let's turn back the clock to March 6, 2018. It was a Tuesday that morning. At the Kashiwa City Police Station, a man walked in. He looked visibly tense. It was Yatani Takahito, 36 years old, currently working at a local bank. He reported that his wife, Maiko, had gone missing 2 days earlier. Takahito said he had searched everywhere on his own, asked around endlessly, but there was no sign of her, no trace, no message left behind. And now, all he could do was turn to the police for help. Right after hearing his report, the police asked Takahito to recount in full detail exactly how his wife had gone missing. Takahito explained that 2 days earlier, he and his wife, Maiko, had driven to visit a niece who lived in a city about 65 kilometers from Kashiwa. On the way back, for reasons he couldn't quite explain, a disagreement broke out between them. Maiko, clearly upset, opened the car door and stepped out, then walked straight into a nearby convenience store. At the time, Takahito thought his wife had just gone in to buy something, maybe to cool off a bit, and would be back soon. So he waited. 1 hour passed, then 2. But Maiko never came back. Takahito said he assumed his wife was just taking a walk to clear her head. So he drove home alone, hoping that giving her space might ease the tension. But looking back now, he admitted, that decision led to consequences he never could have imagined. 2 days had passed, and not only had Maiko not returned, Takahito hadn't been able to reach her at all. She wasn't answering her phone, no replies, no one had seen her anywhere. He began to feel genuinely worried, afraid that something bad might have happened to her. And that's why, today, he found himself at the police station. He also choked up as he shared, "We have a 1-year-old daughter at home, and she's still waiting for her mom to come back. Please help us." Hearing his report, The police immediately launched an investigation. The next morning, police went to the convenience store Takahito had mentioned. They brought a photo of Mako and asked the staff, "Did anyone see this woman come into the store on March 4th?" All the employees shook their heads. No one remembered seeing her that day. To be sure, the police collected all the security footage from the store, both the interior cameras and those recording the street outside. After carefully reviewing the footage frame by frame, they discovered, yes, there was a car parked outside the store for an extended period of time on March 4th. But no one ever stepped out of the car. And what raised even more suspicion, the footage from inside the store showed no sign of Mako entering at all, not once. No one resembling her appeared on camera, nothing. It was as if she had never been there. Meanwhile, Takahito continued to insist that Mako had gotten out of the car and walked into the store. So if what he said was true, then where did Mako go? Did she just vanish into thin air right there on the street? That was impossible. The police began to sense that something wasn't quite right with the husband's story. After Mako went missing, Takahito and his family appeared extremely proactive. They printed a large number of missing person flyers and distributed them everywhere. The flyer included clear details: missing person, Yatani Mako, 30 years old, height, 150 to 155 centimeters, slim build, long black hair, a detailed description of the clothes she was wearing on the day she disappeared, location of the disappearance, and at the bottom, there was even an email address, Takahito's, so that anyone with information could contact him directly. From the outside, everyone could see that the husband was very worried about his wife. But to the police, the incongruous details were gradually making them suspicious. Mako's family later printed a large number of missing person flyers and handed them out everywhere, from major train stations and shopping centers to busy street corners. On the surface, this seemed completely normal. After all, anyone with a missing loved one would do the same. But when police examined the flyer closely, something felt off. Normally, missing person notices include full contact information, a family phone number, or the direct line to the police in charge, so that anyone with clues can respond immediately. But in Mako's flyer, there's only one form of contact, an email address, and that email belonged to her husband, Takahito. This seemingly small detail only deepened the police's suspicion toward him. On March 9th, 5 days after Maiko's disappearance, police visited the couple's apartment, located on the 10th floor of a residential building, to examine the scene and gather more clues. But the moment they stepped inside, the first thing that shocked them was the place was immaculate, so clean it felt almost unnatural. The floor was spotless, furniture neatly arranged, not a speck of dust anywhere, and even the kitchen showed no trace of oil or grime. Police decided to check common surfaces where fingerprints are usually left: doorknobs, tabletops, remote controls. But the result? Nothing. Almost no fingerprints could be found anywhere in the entire apartment. When asked about it, Takahito offered an explanation. He said Mako was obsessed with cleanliness. She always wore gloves, even when touching things inside their own home, including door handles. So, according to him, the lack of fingerprints was perfectly normal. At first glance, it sounded plausible. But no matter how meticulous someone is, it's nearly impossible to live in a home and leave no trace behind. And don't forget, the convenience store's security cameras also showed no footage of Mako entering that day. The more police investigated, the more convinced they became something suspicious was being hidden, and the truth might be far darker than anyone imagined, based on all the evidence they had gathered. On March 12th, exactly 8 days after Mako went missing, police decided to take Takahito into custody for questioning. They believed he was involved in the case, and then, just 4 days later, under the intense pressure of interrogation, Takahito broke down. He confessed to everything. Mako was never truly missing. She had been killed, and the one who took her life was none other than Takahito himself. The entire missing person story was just a performance, a carefully staged act he created to cover up the truth. Takahito admitted that he had been planning to kill his wife for quite some time. On the day it happened, around noon, he cooked a pot of curry rice, Meiko's favorite dish. But this time, he added a sleeping pill into the meal. The strong aroma of curry masked the smell of the drug, so Meiko ate without any suspicion. After finishing the meal, she began to feel drowsy and weak. Thinking she was just tired, Meiko had no idea what was really happening. Then Takahito suggested they go for a drive to relax, and Meiko readily agreed. Before leaving, she dropped off their one-year-old daughter at her parents' house, something she often did whenever she needed some time to unwind. As they were driving, Meiko dozed off in the passenger seat. It seemed the sleeping pill had started to take effect. It was around 3 p.m. At that time, Takahito continued driving until he reached a remote, quiet area, wide open, with no one around, and then, once he was sure there were no witnesses, he pulled out a rope he had prepared in advance and strangled his wife to death. After committing the murder, he drove to his parents' house in Toraide City, Ibaraki Prefecture, about 12 kilometers away from where the couple lived. It was a single-story house with a fairly spacious garden, and it was right there, in that very garden, that he buried Meiko's body in the backyard of his own parents' home. The police, upon hearing his confession, couldn't help but question it. If he really did everything alone, from committing the murder, transporting the body, digging a grave, and burying it, and all of that happened right in his parents' backyard, then how could no one in the house have noticed? Could he truly have pulled it all off, quietly and without raising a single alarm? Takahito firmly insisted. I did everything on my own. At that time my parents weren't home. No one knew anything. However, after a thorough investigation, police discovered several holes in his statement. His father, Yatani Kazuo, did in fact go to work regularly, so it made sense that he wouldn't be home during the day. But his mother, Emi, was battling cancer, and because of her condition, she stayed at home almost all day, rarely ever going out. Not only that, there was also his grandmother. Over 90 years old, though frail and elderly, she was always inside the house as well. With that many people constantly present in the house, the act of digging, burying, and covering up a crime in the yard, it was simply impossible for it to go unnoticed. There would have been noise. There would have been signs. There's no way no one saw or heard a thing. In the end, the police questioned every member of the household one by one. And then, another truth came to light. Emi, Takahito's mother, finally confessed. Her son had killed Meiko while drunk. When he came home, he told her everything. She was horrified, but also overwhelmed by a mother's instinct to protect her child. So despite her shock and pain, she made a fateful decision to help him cover up the crime by helping bury Meiko's body in the backyard. This marked a major turning point in the case. Police then reviewed the message history between Takahito and his mother, and in their chat on the Line app, they uncovered chilling exchanges, including, "Prepare the sleeping pills, and we need to find a coffin." These weren't just vague hints. They were clear signs of premeditation. With just those two chilling messages, every lingering doubt turned into undeniable truth. Not only was Takahito the mastermind behind the crime, his mother, Emi, was now confirmed to be his accomplice. Faced with undeniable evidence, Emi had no choice but to tell the whole truth. She said that after Meiko gave birth to her daughter in 2017, she began to show signs of psychological distress. Specifically, Meiko was diagnosed with obsessive-compulsive disorder, often referred to as an extreme cleanliness obsession. She would wash her hands repeatedly, even if she had just washed them minutes earlier. She cleaned the house over and over, wiping the same objects again and again. She couldn't feel at ease unless everything was absolutely perfect. Her condition grew worse over time, to the point where she forced her husband to wear shoes inside the house, always wore disposable gloves whenever touching anything, and wouldn't allow phones to be brought into the home unless they were wrapped in a plastic bag and kept untouched. According to Emi, Takahito's life had become suffocating day after day, and perhaps because of that, he quietly began to harbor thoughts of getting rid of his wife. Life with Meiko was growing more and more unbearable. If Takahito ever failed to follow one of the strict rules his wife had set, even something as small as forgetting to wear gloves when touching household items, he would be punished immediately. He'd be forced to clean the entire house, top to bottom, with his own hands, from morning until night. The pressure from his job during the day was already exhausting, but the real stress began the moment he stepped through the door at home. In the very place that was supposed to bring peace, he felt more suffocated than anywhere else. Takahito grew increasingly miserable, feeling trapped and hopeless, right in the heart of his own marriage. In May 2017, Takahito took Meiko to a psychiatric hospital, hoping that doctors could help treat her obsessive cleanliness disorder. The doctor prescribed her some medication, and thankfully, in the first few weeks, Meiko's condition seemed to improve. But that brief moment of hope didn't last long. By October of the same year, Meiko became irritable and impatient with everything, especially with her own daughter. While breastfeeding, she kept yelling and rushing the baby to eat faster. When Takahito was at work, she often called him and said, "Come home right now. Just looking at the baby makes me upset. If you don't come back, I don't know what I'll do with her." Each time, Takahito would abandon his work and rush home. Living day by day in fear and anxiety, he wanted to take Meiko for a checkup, but she stubbornly refused to go to the hospital. Then, her condition worsened day by day. The accumulated exhaustion became so severe that Takahito himself had to see a doctor for a psychological evaluation. The result, he was diagnosed with depression. Knowing this, he fell into even deeper despair. He was fed up with such a life without love, only filled with duty, fear, and confinement. And then, a dangerous thought began to flicker in Takahito's mind. He no longer wanted to live with Meiko. He wanted her to disappear from his life. He rushed home and told his mother everything, his crazy, cruel intention. Takahito's mother, Emi, was initially shocked. She tried to stop her son, saying that no matter what, he couldn't do such a thing. But perhaps out of love for her son, or maybe because she was in the final stage of cancer and felt she didn't have much time left, she seemed to want to do one last thing to help her son. On the afternoon of March 2nd, 2018, 2 days before the incident, Emi called Takahito and said that his father was currently working far away and wasn't at home. She suggested, "If you still want to do that, now is the right time. We can dig a hole in the yard." Takahito immediately rushed to his mother's house, and together they quietly dug a hole in the backyard. They used some miscellaneous items to cover it up, as if nothing had happened. 2 days later, on March 4th, Meiko was murdered, and just as planned, he brought her body home and buried it in the hole they had dug. On March 6th, Takahito officially reported his wife missing to the police as part of their plan to cover up the crime. He and his mother printed a large number of flyers and posted them everywhere: train stations, shopping centers, busy streets. Both of them pretended to be a worried family, actively handing out flyers like anyone else with a missing loved one. But the truth was, Meiko was still lying beneath the cold earth, right in their own backyard. Many people who knew Meiko shared that after giving birth, she completely quit her job to stay home and take care of the family. No one expected that the resignation letter was also the moment her voice in the family came to an end. All the child rearing, cleaning, and household chores were Meiko's responsibility. And as her mental state gradually became unstable, there was no one patient enough to understand her anymore. Beyond the psychological pressure, Meiko was also hurt by her husband's indifference. While she constantly vented on social media about raising the child alone and the daily built-up exhaustion, her husband Takahito remained silent. He didn't help or share the burden. Instead, he spent his time drinking and sleeping in. leaving his wife to struggle alone with the crying baby. Mako once wrote that she just hoped her child would soon be old enough to go to daycare, so she could return to work and escape those suffocating days. Many times she would cry unconsciously, simply because she was so exhausted. On May 22, 2019, exactly 15 months after the incident, Takahito's trial officially began. At the trial, he testified that he killed his wife to protect their daughter, believing that Mako was increasingly losing control and becoming a danger to the child. The defense lawyer presented a psychiatric certificate, arguing that Takahito was mentally ill and unable to control his behavior normally, and requested the court to consider leniency. However, the prosecution strongly opposed this. They argued, there is no evidence that Mako ever abused their daughter. Family conflicts are something that can be resolved, but the defendant chose to kill his wife, meticulously planned it, and then deceived society with the missing person act. They concluded that Takahito treated a human life as an obstacle and chose to eliminate his wife in order to live a more comfortable life. That was a contempt for life itself, something unforgivable. On June 15, 2019, the court announced its verdict. Takahito was sentenced to 15 years in prison for intentional homicide. His biological mother, Emi, received a 7-year prison sentence for complicity and assisting in the disposal of the victim's body. After the trial, Takahito's friends and former colleagues were left in shock. To them, he had been a model bank employee, mild-mannered, polite, with a bright future. No one ever imagined that this man would cruelly murder his own wife, with whom he had shared a life, a former colleague shared. Before, I always thought his wife was the one taking care of their child. Now, the child is orphaned of both parents. It's truly heartbreaking. Wherever there are people, there are conflicts. But what's crucial is that when conflicts arise, we need to work together to find solutions. Understand and listen to each other. Never choose extreme measures, because once you cross the line, the pain doesn't stop with just one person. It drags an entire family, and sometimes even many generations, into tragedy. Thank you for following the story to the end. See you in the next cases. Goodbye.